What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel and another installment in my Predator review series, where I discuss all the Predator movies in the lead up to my overdue review of Prey. And today we're talking about the 2018 film, The Predator. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie are if you already saw it or if you were planning on seeing it. And make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more movie related content like the rest of this review series on a near daily basis. But let's not waste any more time and let's talk about The Predator. This sees a young boy, played by Jacob Tremblay, accidentally trigger the universe's most lethal hunter's return to Earth, and only a ragtag crew of ex-soldiers and a disgruntled scientist can prevent the end of the human race. Shane Black, who was one of the cast members in the first movie, takes over as writer-director for this one, and when I heard that he was going to be involved at the time, my excitement for this went through the roof. I think Shane Black's a great writer, and I really enjoyed all of his directorial efforts. I even like Iron Man 3, as much as everyone likes to try telling me that that's one of the worst Marvel movies or something, or it's not that good, or whatever it may be. But that's definitely not the case, though that's a story for another day. Point being, he's in a place where anytime he has a new project out, I'm immediately excited. So consider my surprise at the time when I saw a lot of people say they flat out hated this. With the exception of the Alien vs. Predator movies, which I'm not covering in this review series, this has generally been regarded as the de facto worst of the Predator movies, and unfortunately, I can kind of see why. Now, when I originally saw this, I actually thought it was pretty solid, though I have to admit that, similar to how I felt about 2010's Predators, my enjoyment of this has gone down, probably more considerably than Predators. I still don't think it's a terrible movie or even a really bad movie. I still enjoyed it for what it was. However, its problems can be noticeable. Now, I'd say the first hour or so of this is enjoyable enough. There's a solid mix in there of the action-packed thrills we come to expect in a Predator movie, mixed with all the usual Shane Blackisms. These aren't necessarily the most well-written of all the characters ever in a Predator movie, but then again, this series isn't exactly noted for having the deepest, most complex characters out there. And instead, the films generally benefit from who's specifically in the cast, with everyone having distinct enough personalities, along with some fun enough banter that it more than makes up for it. And after the ultra-dark and gritty, super serious Predators, we go back to that, probably to the most extreme here. Boyd Holbrook plays our lead, who's this army captain that gets held captive by the government, and he winds up leading a team of other captives that include Trevante Rhodes, Keegan-Michael Key, Alfie Allen, and Thomas Jane, along with Olivia Munn as a scientist who was working at this government facility. And here you get a lot of fast-paced exchanges with all these characters where they crack jokes at nearly everything. Even when they're in life-threatening situations, they tend to make some sort of quip about something, and generally, a lot of that landed for me. It's by no means the sharpest Shane Black dialogue out there, but I thought it worked well enough. I found a lot of the dialogue among everyone to be pretty consistently amusing, even if not always laugh-out-loud hilarious. My two favorites among this group were Key and Jane, who primarily stick together and generally dig at each other pretty frequently, though Jane can be the butt of the joke with everyone pretty consistently, as he's shown to have Tourette's, which usually leads to some awkward exchanges. Now, I mean, if you don't like characters constantly making jokes in your action movies or horror movies or your big budget blockbusters or anything that's not specifically supposed to be a comedy, then I guess, yeah, you'll get a little frustrated with this. I know that was one of the big reasons why a lot of people didn't seem to particularly care for this one, and that's usually a big complaint against a lot of bigger blockbusters these days. No one seems to like jokes in things that aren't specifically comedies, so if that's not your thing, then yeah, you probably won't like this, but I honestly thought it was fine. And for that first hour or so, I thought all the action was entertaining enough. By no means the most brutal of all the Predator movies, I think that's reserved for Predators, but the film moved pretty quickly and it was entertaining. I generally didn't have an issue with any of the effects here, and it was cool to see multiple types of Predators out there, with two of them duking it out with one another, while our characters try fighting both, with these Predators probably being some of the smartest of the Predators we've seen. Plus, we also have Predator Hounds, which I thought was a fun twist on what we normally get in these movies. And I also liked how, similar to Predator 2, this doesn't try putting itself into this formula that just makes it indistinguishable from the first movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the first movie, but I'd be kind of bored if every single other movie just went ahead and felt like a copy and paste of it. We kind of got that in Predators, except tonally it was different and the characters were considerably less likable, but that still managed to make things work. Though I know if every other movie just tried doing some variation of the original, it would become too derivative. narrative. So I like that this was constantly on the move and it got more characters involved, rather than just keeping things contained and focused on one small group of people. And for the most part, it's paced fairly well, even if not everything worked for me. Like, I did think some of the more family-centered stuff with Boyd Holbrook, Jacob Tremblay, who plays his son, and Yvonne Strahovski, who plays his estranged wife, that stuff was kind of corny, but I didn't think the movie felt slow, and I liked how it was constantly on the move, and it provided adequate enough thrills, balanced out with some fun banter among all the cast. I mean, I'll say it again. Not the most profound or deepest characters out there, but that's never been what the Predator movies are about. As I said, generally it's the actual cast members as well as the dynamic and banter among each of them that make up for the more one-dimensional material. So really, this doesn't stray too far from what these movies have done. Now, while a good part of this movie works, where it takes a noticeable downturn for me is within the last act. And this isn't like it's just a minor misstep. We're talking at least the last half hour or so, because when we move towards the really big battles with the Predator, where a lot of the paths converge, that's where it loses me a bit. As our main characters try fighting the Predator, you also have Sterling K. Brown as the primary government official who's been experimenting on the Predators and was holding Holbrook and the other characters hostage. So besides the Predators, he's one of our primary antagonists. Now, once everyone crosses paths again, during the last battles with the Predator, the film becomes a bit messy. Now, while I like the general fast pace of the film, it feels incredibly rushed here, and you can sense that immediately in the editing. It can be chaotic, with a lot of rapid-fire quick cuts that will feel disorienting. Like, it's to the point that you have a bit of a hard time keeping track of what's going on. There were several times some shots in a row will only last for like a second each. And usually it's during something major. There's one character's arc who wraps up in probably the most abrupt way that you almost have this delayed reaction to it. Like, you almost don't even realize things were over for this one character because we're just quickly cutting away to like 10 other things going on at once. So you almost totally miss it. And again, it's disorienting. While I like that this movie kept things moving along nicely, there is a balance there, and when you're constantly cutting the camera away, even during a chaotic fight scene, it can take you out of the moment. And while the CGI is mostly fine throughout this film, in the last act it becomes noticeably weaker. There's one sequence on a Predator ship as it's moving through the air that honestly looks pretty bad. Like, the green screen in this sequence couldn't be more apparent. And again, it's another one of those things that takes you just right out of it. So when you combine the two issues, it causes the ending to end on a bit of a sour note compared to where it began. Again, it's not like it just amounts to like 5 or 10 minutes or so. This is like 20 to 30 minutes worth of material. Now, I know there were reshoots, there were some poor test screenings, and the ending was reshot multiple times, so I know this wasn't Shane Black's original vision, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see his original vision. And I read what the original ending was. There were definitely both some choices in there that would be nice callbacks to the original, while also boldly going in some different directions, which I could appreciate. Now, I don't know if it ultimately would have stuck the landing better, but either way, whatever we got here, it definitely was far from ideal. I really don't think The Predator is a bad movie, though its faults can be noticeable. While you do have a great cast, the fast pace, and enough deviations from the formula that make it a fun enough ride, a lot of that is undermined a bit by an incredibly rushed ending that's plagued by disorienting edits and some noticeably bad visual effects. And that does, unfortunately, bring the movie down a bit for me, though not to the point that I hate it or dislike it. It's unfortunately just not a film that reaches its fullest potential, but in the end, I thought it worked fine enough for what it was. The Predator gets a 6.5 out of 10. So stay tuned, as up next will be my review of the newest film, Prey. But in the meantime, let me know, did you see The Predator, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Is this your least favorite of the Predator movies? Do you think it's not all that bad? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone, and keep having fun with film.